2022 on Court TV has been unusual, extremely unusual. Criminal defendants in court going to trial, many charged with murder, several taking the stand, and one after the other being found not guilty.
We, the jury, find the defendant count 1, malice murder, not guilty.
Verdict as to count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
Verdict. We, the jury, finds as follows. The defendant is not guilty.
What is going on here? Why all of a sudden in 2022 are defendants being set free by juries from around the country? Our think tank weighs in. In Waukesha County, Wisconsin, local residents enjoying a holiday tradition, watching the Christmas parade, when a man driving a car turns his vehicle on parade watchers. 6 people are killed and more than 60 others are injured. And now the man charged with the brutal attack is back in court trying to get the case moved out of Waukesha.
The relief that we're seeking is either a change of venue or the impaneling of a jury from another county.
On the docket tonight in Palm Beach County, Florida, the killer clown trial. Sheila Keene Warren accused of dressing up like a clown, shooting Marlene Warren, then marrying her husband. Tonight, we hear from Marlene's son.
Well, I was so shut down inside, I didn't want to talk. I couldn't talk. I am ready.
Plus, Amber Heard's full interview with Court TV alum Savannah Guthrie aired on Friday's Dateline. Tonight's 13th juror question. Do you think Amber Heard re-defamed Johnny Depp in her interview? Get ready. This hour of closing arguments starts right now. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And for those of you who've been following my career, you know I've been doing this for a while. I mean, it's been a while. I joined Court TV originally right after the turn of the century and started covering trials. Before that, I was covering the law as well. But, you know, and first I was a correspondent. I go out in the field, you know, like Chanley Painter, Julie Janae, and Joy Lim-Nakrin, and I'd be in the courtroom. And I can remember going around courtroom, traveling around the country. And once it was time for deliberations, the question usually wasn't, are they going to convict him? And it was usually a him. It was more like, how long do you think they'll be out before they convict him? Right? I mean, that's the way it was. And yeah, there were a few surprises. I'm not going to mention it, but that was the norm. And you know, the evidence was usually strong, the arguments were strong, and it was very expected that at the end of the day there would be a conviction. But then came 2022. I don't know where this year came from, but maybe it started in 2021. You know, out there in Kenosha, Wisconsin, Kyle Rittenhouse getting the ball rolling with his not guilty verdict, because this has been bizarre, what we've been watching right here on your front row seat to justice. Are all these not guilty verdicts being returned, one after the other, in serious cases? And, you know, you could agree or disagree with the verdicts, but understand what happens when the jury comes back and says not guilty. It means we don't know what happened. It's like for the victim's family, there's no answer for them. There is no answer. And for someone who is, you know, your loved one has been murdered, I mean, that was all you had, and you don't have that. It's really, I've never seen anything like what is happening this year. Take a look. Curtis Reeves was charged with 1 count of murder in the 2nd degree and 1 count of aggravated battery after he shot and killed Chad Olson and injured his wife, Nicole, during a dispute over cell phone use while at a movie theater back in 2014. On February 25th, after deliberating for just under 3 hours, a Florida jury found Curtis Reeves was not guilty of all charges. Brett Hankinson was charged with 3 counts of wanton endangerment in the 1st degree after he shot 10 rounds into Breonna Taylor's apartment and endangered the lives of the neighboring occupants back in 2020. On March 3rd, after deliberating for about 3 hours, a Kentucky jury found that Brett Hankinson was not guilty on all charges. Michael Barrasone was charged with 2 counts of first-degree attempted murder and 2 counts of second-degree unlawful possession of a handgun after he shot his trainee, Lauren Kanarek, twice in the chest and attempted to shoot her fiancé, Rob Goodwin, after fighting with the couple for months back in 2019. On April 14th, after deliberating for 4 days, a New Jersey jury found that Michael Barrasone was not guilty on all charges by reason of insanity. Dr. William Usel was charged with 14 counts of murder after overprescribing pain medication to patients who were near death. On April 20th, after deliberating for 6 days, an Ohio jury found that William Usel was not guilty on all charges. Celebrity chef Mario Batali was charged with indecent assault and battery after he allegedly groped and forcibly kissed a woman who was taking a selfie with him back in 2017. Batali waived his right to a jury trial, and on May 10th, after a 2-day bench trial, a Massachusetts judge found that Mario Batali was not guilty on all charges. Ryan Duke was charged with malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, burglary, and concealing the death of another after he and a friend allegedly broke into the home of a teacher and beauty queen, Tara Grinstead, and murdered her, then got rid of her body in a pecan orchard back in 2005. On May 20th, after 6 hours of deliberations, a jury found Ryan Duke not guilty on the murder charges, the assault, and the burglary charge. And Danielle Redlick was charged with second-degree murder and tampering with physical evidence after allegedly stabbing her husband, Michael Redlick, in the shoulder and killing him back in 2019. On June 17th, after deliberating for 2 days, a Florida jury found Danielle Redlick not guilty on the charge of second-degree murder. What is going on? Everyone is, you're not guilty, you're not guilty, you're not guilty. Let's bring the think tank. Maybe they have some answers for me tonight. Joining us in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Al Wunsch III. Joining us from the Dominican Republic, international man of mystery, criminal defense attorney Darnell Crosland, and in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, family law attorney Jennifer Brandt. Great to see everyone tonight. Al, you've been a prosecutor, you've been a defense attorney, you've been in courtrooms longer than I have, because I think you're older than I am. Are you? Yeah, I think you are, yeah. So what's going on here in 2022? Is there maybe an explanation for this? Are people not believing prosecutors? Are they more skeptical of our government? What's going on here?
Ben, we're going off the rails. Next stop, Crazy Town. Okay, you brought it up last week, and I love it. Crazy Town is at Crazy Town. That's what's happening. We are now in a world of perpetual doubt. Everything is a doubt. Every time the case goes forward, someone has a doubt. They didn't like the way the case was presented. They didn't like the tie that the prosecutor was wearing. They didn't like the fact that the victim was not the nicest person. They're afraid to convict someone who says that they had been beaten in the past or that they have been abused in the past. There is nothing but perpetual doubt going on throughout the minds of these jurors. And it's very interesting. I mean, it's a fascinating study in sociology. As like you said, it was never a question of when or would they be convicted. It was when they would be convicted. How long would the jury be out for? Now they're coming back in record limited, like very limited time, hours, and it's not guilty. And on the most bizarre cases, the popcorn case, and I will say this, I have been consistently wrong on almost every one of these verdicts. I admit it here freely. I'm saying it now. I have been consistently wrong. There hasn't been one verdict I have gotten correct. Since OJ forward, I have not gotten a verdict for it.
Darnell, Darnell, you're part of this. You've got your winning streak going as a criminal defense attorney. We've talked about that in the past. Are you sensing some difference in the public when they come and they get that jury notice and they sit down? Are they more skeptical of prosecutors? Are they skeptical of the evidence? Do they not want to believe what the government is saying? What is going on, Darnell?
Well, listen, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And when I tell you that there's nothing crazy about what's happening here, this is not crazy town, and I reject that notion. The idea here is that it's been for so long, the prosecution has always been the good guys. That's why Court TV and all the other networks love putting up former prosecutor as though they're telling the truth or we could believe them. And I have nothing against anybody who's a former prosecutor.
That's me. You're talking about me, Darnell. Yes. That's my whole thing. Sonny, I am the former prosecutor.
You, Sonny Houston, all of you guys, former prosecutors, as though, hey, we better believe what they said. You know, but Jennifer Brandt is just as credible as a family attorney. I'm just as credible as a criminal defense attorney. But what's happened for so long is that everyone is bent to believe in these prosecutors. And the judge, good morning, Mr. Prosecutor. Good morning, Madam Clerk. Good morning. And the defense bar is only a guest in their house. And that's been going on for too long. 2022, I just beat a murder case, State versus Hayes. And in that trial, the judge forced me to try the case with co-defendant over all objections. And then when we started getting along and working together, the judge got upset. At the same time, a federal judge is telling me that I must start picking a jury while I'm doing a trial in a state court. So we got our verdict today. I started picking a federal jury the next morning. That's abusive.
All right, let me ask you, Darnell, because you can give us some insight into this, right? You say you beat a murder case. Was your client actually innocent?
Absolutely. And that's the thing about it. In my closing argument, we heard so much about this thing called GSR, which is gunshot residue. And in my closing argument, I said to the jury, we heard hours and hours about GSR, but we never saw any GSR connected to my client. So I guess when it comes to Black and Latinos, you're guilty for some reason. So GSR now has a new meaning. And the jury thought that was very, very funny. And it is true, because they talked about GSR, but they never connected it. So I said, GSR, ladies and gentlemen, must be guilty for some reason when you're Black and Latino. And they came back with a not guilty verdict after 4 days on the murder case. And they were innocent. But yet still, they tried this case. And to me, that was the injustice to put us through this, even though we won. But who wants to go through that? And so I'm so happy that juries are standing up saying, no, defense attorneys, defendants are not guests in this room. This is not going to be a pre-cooked decision, and we're going to go ahead and voice these opinions.
Jennifer Brandt, here's my theory. You ready? I'm going to throw this out. You can agree, disagree, or I want to hear your theory on what's going on here. I think there's a lot more skepticism about the government, and I think prosecutors are part of the government. They are. I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, in federal court, they actually refer to themselves as the government. And I think they might want to, shy away from that a little bit, because I think people are questioning the government because of what has happened over the course of the last 2 years in this country. And there's a lot of skepticism coming from all different places about the trust in our government. And then at the end of the day, if you're not trusting the government, are you going to trust a prosecutor? Because a prosecutor is an arm of the government here. What are your thoughts, Jennifer?
I absolutely agree with you, Vinnie, on that one. And I don't always agree with you. You know that.
I know.
I think people...
Trust me, I know.
I think people are much more skeptical these days of the government, police, prosecutors, the state. So people are really questioning what is going on, really taking a hard look at the facts and the evidence. But the question here is, have we gone too far? Have things got to a point where people are so skeptical of what a prosecutor might say or the case that they're bringing that they're making some questionable decisions in light of a lot of evidence. I mean, we talked a lot about the Danielle Redlick case, and it seemed like there was a lot of evidence pointing to her as, a murderer. And the jury found her not guilty. The popcorn murder case, we spent a lot of time on that one, and the jury found him not guilty. I mean, you have to trust the jury system, and that is our system of law. But, you know, are we getting to a point where people are questioning the government and doubting the government to such an extent that maybe we're getting some verdicts that, you know, are questionable and may not be accurate? I mean, it is what the jury found, and you have to believe the jury, but is the pendulum going to swing the other way? And I think that's, you know, that's what people might start asking after seeing a lot of these not guilty verdicts.
You know,
I mean,
it's one after the other.
Wunsch to be
Just a
wrong
ton. We
all
shall
the
see.
time, you know, that's hard to believe.
Time.
All right. Good perspective. They're with us the whole hour. Al Wunsch, Darnell Crosland, Jennifer Brandt. When we come back, we're going to take you out to Waukesha, Wisconsin. Darrell Brooks. This is the guy who was behind the wheel of a car. 6 people died. More than 60 were injured. Big developments inside the courtroom today. He wants the case out of Waukesha County. Also entered a plea today that may surprise you a little bit. All of that next.
Hey, I called an Uber, and I'm supposed to be waiting for it over here, but I don't know when it's coming. Can you call it for me, please? I'm homeless. I don't know. It's him. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's My ID.
Hey, do you know this guy? Absolutely not. Okay.
That was some Ring video. Darrell Brooks, he's the man accused in the Waukesha Christmas Parade massacre. 6 people killed, more than 60 hurt. As the man behind the wheel, that red car, just running people over. Big hearing in the case today, and Stephanie Haynes from our great affiliate WTMJ out in Milwaukee has a look at what's taking place inside the courtroom.
Brooks faces 83 charges in Waukesha County Court, including 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. Back in April, the judge sent out more than 2,000 questionnaires to potential jurors in the county to see if an impartial jury could be seated at Brooks' trial, which is set for October. In court documents, Brooks' attorneys say more than 1,500 questionnaires were returned, and of those, more than 700 indicated that they either attended or knew someone who attended the parade. They state 45% of all potential jurors indicated yes to questions about trauma impact. Close to 200 reported donating to fundraisers. Some responded they knew someone who was hurt in the parade. Others report they have been closely following news of the case. Brooks' attorneys write some of the responses, quote, were accompanied with diatribe indicating extreme bias. In one example, a potential juror didn't answer any questions and wrote, quote, yes, he should pay for his crime. Prosecutors say there's no need to change the venue. In their documents, they say they can further question potential jurors in person in a process called voir dire, which happens right at the start of trial. And finally, they write it will be tough on the victims if the trial is moved to another county.
So there you have it. The man accused of running over all the people in the Waukesha Christmas Parade doesn't want the case tried in Waukesha and doesn't want people from Waukesha judging him at this murder trial. Here's the judge rendering her decision today.
The court, of course, started by asking the following question. When does the publicity attending conduct charged as criminal dim prospects that the trier can judge a case as due process requires impartially, unswayed by outside influence. Given the facts presented in this case, the relevant statutes, constitutional provisions, and case law, it is clear to this court that a change of venue is not required. This court is committed to ensuring that the rights of Mr. Brooks to a fair trial and an impartial jury are protected. In this case, the defense has failed to demonstrate that there is a likelihood of community prejudice so pervasive as to preclude the possibility of a fair trial in Waukesha County. The defense has also not demonstrated actual bias or actual prejudice in this county. There is no doubt in the court's mind that an impartial jury can and will be impaneled in Waukesha County with the strong methods outlined today. For all of these reasons, the motion to change venue is hereby denied. For the same reasons, the motion to impanel a jury from another county is also denied.
Both motions denied. That means the people of Waukesha will judge this man in a courtroom in Waukesha County, Wisconsin. And that's what you want. You want the people of the community judging a crime from their community, as long as you can get the fair and impartial jurors. Let's bring back in our think tank, Al Wunsch, Darnell Crosland, Jennifer Brandt. Darnell, do you concur with the honorable judge?
No, I'm pissed. I'm so sick and tired of being sick and tired. All you hear all the time is the same thing we just talked about in the last segment. The defense has failed to prove this. The defense has failed to prove that. The defense is, and we're committed to doing this, and give these flowery speeches. And all that is wink, wink, prosecutor. You won this motion again. And that's why in the last segment, I was so pleased that juries are saying, I don't care what kind of wink, wink you do. I don't care how many motions of mine that you're going to deny. We're going to have the final word. And they can't change that. And so that's why 2022 in the last segment is a breath of fresh air. That's all we get as defense attorneys is they failed to do this, they failed to do that. God forbid you come in 5 seconds late, you get yelled at. The prosecutor can come in an hour late and they just say, okay, we'll get going when Mr. Prosecutor, Madam Prosecutor gets here. I'm sick of it. We have to fight every single day for just a right to breathe. And as a former prosecutor, you might not appreciate this. But we, as a defense attorney, we're really the constitutional barriers. And you know, I might be getting emotional with this, but I disagree with that whole little speech that the judge gave when you heard people say straight out that they basically can't be impartial, that this guy should pay for his wrongs, et cetera. And just lastly, it's not about just having people from Waukesha judge this guy. It's just about having a day in court with a fair panel, a fair jury, and I don't care if they came from Jupiter. And that's what this is about.
Well, Jennifer Brandt, we do have that French word, voir dire.
That's right, Vinny. And I disagree with Darnell tonight because Darnell's getting on his soapbox about defense attorneys and prosecutors, and it's really not about any of the lawyers involved. It's about searching for the truth, getting to the right result. And it's not about who gets, you know, to come in 5 minutes late or an hour late or any of that. It's about getting to the right answer. And here the judge, she sent out a questionnaire. The court sent out a questionnaire. How many? 1,500 people responded. They found that 45%, okay, 45% were biased potentially, but 55% were not. And they're looking for a relatively small number of people to sit on this jury. They had, what, 720 responses that were negative, but then they have over 800 that are positive. And of 800 people, I think they can find a fair and impartial jury. And I think this judge, they did what they had to do to ensure that they're going to get a fair jury. And shouldn't it be in the county where the crime was committed? This is the community that was affected the most by what happened. And these are victims here that were hurt and their family members that are all here in this community. So why are we, aren't we looking for the right result again, and not about who gets some favoritism or, whether the prosecutor gets the wink wink or not? That's not really what it's about. It's about coming to the truth of the matter.
That affects the verdicts. No,
not necessarily, Darnell. No, I understand your position. I understand that you may feel that way as a defense attorney. I get it. And I mean, I'm in front of judges, and sometimes they seem to favor one side or the other, and you feel like you have an uphill battle. But that's our job. That's what we're paid to do, and that's what we do. We fight for our clients. We advocate for our clients. And so, I mean, but at the end of the day, you weigh all the evidence, and you hope to come to the right result so that, if there's somebody committed a crime, they should pay for it. And if they didn't, well, then they're not guilty. So that's our jury system.
Al, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Ready? I want you to take a listen to what happened after this decision when it was time to enter the formal plea. Let's watch.
The court had given us until, I believe, July 1st or June 30th to enter any special pleas, and it is Mr. Brooks's intention to change his plea to not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect.
Al, is this, it's an insanity plea, right? Mental disease or defect. Sometimes there are people who are legitimately at the long history, they don't know right from wrong, whatever. Is this a situation where you think that's actually happening, or is it like there's no other defense, so we're going to try the insanity defense? Because it seems the evidence is pretty clear that he was behind the wheel of that car.
Yes, and I think that that's a smart move on the defense side to come in with that at this late date and put that forward. They're keeping it in that county, so we might as well do that. I just want to point out one thing, Ben, that your Conneticut staff pointed out that I was correct on the Mario Batali verdict, and I was correct on the Bruce Springsteen verdict. So I have to go back and apologize. I was wrong on saying I've been wrong all the time. And our Darnell situation, I understand he's very upset. My understanding is that someone stole his pail and shovel on the beaches of the Dominican Republic, and he's been very upset since then. Yeah, so I can understand that. And the lifeguards refused to look for it. And that is a whole, what we don't know. We're going to be checking on this later. It's going to be the case of the stolen pail and shovel. Darnell?
Vinny, can I just touch on this, on the McNaughton rule? So the McNaughton rule says whether a person understands right from wrong in terms of the insanity defense. Just because you do something insane doesn't make you insane. So driving through that parade of people was an insane act. Now, when you start looking at the McNaughton rule and the other rules that apply to the insanity defenses, they're going to have to look at his history and a bunch of other things. And I think it's the right thing to do to at least plead that defense, and now they have to prove it up.
Yeah, it's a smart move.
Yeah.
It's definitely a smart move at this stage of the game to come in with that. I mean, what else? And everyone who looks at this, what's the first thing you say? That guy's crazy. So, I mean, you certainly are hitting the right chord by at least examining it. Whether or not they can establish, the McNaughton rule is, yet to be seen.
Yeah, but we want to remind everyone, top of the show, there was a case out of your state, Al, which is also my home state of New Jersey, where the jury came back and found someone not guilty by reason of insanity. So nothing is a given, especially in 2022. All right, when we come back, we're going to take you on the docket, the killer clown trial. We're going to hear from the victim's son. He was there when that clown rang the doorbell and his mom answered the door and the clown shot his mother and killed her. That's next.
Ago, a person dressed as a clown, holding flowers and balloons, rang the doorbell at Marlene Warren's home. But when Marlene answered, the clown shot her to death.
Advanced DNA testing led authorities to Sheila Keene Warren. The defendant ended up marrying the victim's husband.
It's like a Lifetime movie plot.
This is going to be a riveting case.
The Killer Clown Murder Trial. Live coverage coming soon on Court TV.
On the docket tonight, the killer clown trial. And this is one unlike any other, right? I mean, someone decides they're going to kill someone, but first, I'm going to dress up like a clown. I mean, it's kind of sick when you think about it, but it seemed to be relatively effective because this was a case that went cold for a while, a long while. Megan McRober from our great affiliate WPTV down in West Palm Beach, Florida, has a closer look at the case tonight and an interview with the victim's son who was there that day. Take a look.
Well, when you've already waited more than 30 years, Joe Aaron says that he is tired of waiting, but his attorney says it could be as little as 4 months or even next year until there is a new trial date. When that day comes, Joe says that he will sit through every second of the trial.
My mom was an angel.
Joe Aaron's final day with his mom was almost exactly 32 years ago.
We were best friends.
Even decades later, his memory of her kindness is crisp.
I look at myself and I still see her in me. The eyes, the smile.
Aaron hasn't spoken publicly about his mom since she was killed.
Well, I was so shut down inside, I didn't want to talk. I couldn't talk. I am ready.
It was May 26th of 1990 at their home in Wellington.
It was just a regular morning. You know, we were planning the day and eating breakfast.
Aaron's was home with his mom, Marlene, and some friends. There was a knock on the door.
Were you the first to find your mom?
We were pretty much all together, you know, right there at the door, and she answered it.
Marlene greeted by a person in a clown costume with balloons and a bouquet of flowers. Investigators said the clown pulled out a gun, shot Marlene, and walked calmly back to their car. Marlene died 2 days later.
I felt my heart, my soul just get ripped out of my body.
Joe was just 20 at the time, an aspiring pilot, getting ready for college. Losing his mom changed his life's trajectory for the worse.
At first, I did not know what was going on, what was up or down.
He long struggled with substance abuse.
I was holding on to the anger and the animosity, and it was just ruthless.
It took decades to accept he might not get closure.
One of the detectives, Williams, told me, we're going to find out who did this no matter what, even if it takes 25 years.
But hope did come at 27 years. Sheila Keene Warren was arrested in Virginia thanks to improved DNA technology. She was living there with Michael Warren, Marlene's husband, at the time of the murder. The two were married nearly a decade after Sheila Keene Warren was accused of killing Marlene.
She took my life out of selfishness and greed.
Keene Warren's trial was set to begin this week, but her attorneys asked for more time to gather witnesses and review more evidence.
So aggravating.
Tough news, as Joe says he's already waited long enough.
They need to do something soon so I can go on with my life.
Hopeful to see a conviction this year that he's dreamed of for decades.
I want the truth and, you know, an end to this tragic thing.
Joe tells me that if he could say anything to Sheila, it would be that she could still get help, and that, quote, if she reaches out to God, she might get it. He says he has found purpose by working with rehabilitation centers, helping other people with addictions and their personal struggles.
It's frustrating. I mean, think about winning all those years for an answer, then finally there's an arrest, and then there's delay after delay after delay. Let's bring back in the think tank Al Wunsch, Darnell Crosland, Jennifer Brandt. Jennifer, we often talk, and it's for a reason, right? I mean, it's part of the Constitution, right, to a speedy trial for a defendant. But sometimes defendants don't want that speedy trial for whatever reason. Things get delayed, but the victims, they never have that right to a speedy trial, and they have to wait and wait and wait for the trial to happen, to find out what happened to their loved one, to get some answers and hopefully get some sense of justice. And that just hasn't happened for this poor guy.
No, and I mean, you can hear it in his voice. It's been a lifetime for him, 31 years that he's had to wait to get some closure on what happened to his mother. I think it took 27 years to find Sheila Keene Warren and to arrest her, and now he's still waiting and waiting and waiting. On the flip side, and Darnell, I think, will like this, if Sheila Keene Warren is not guilty, then think about her, too. She's been sitting in jail for all this time, and she's been waiting for the trial. So for everyone involved, I think there needs to be closure on this matter and to figure out what happened and get to the trial already and get it moving. It's been such a long time.
Yeah, Al, this is difficult. This is, you know, people from the outside looking in at our system of justice are like, why does it take so long? Okay, we understand it took a long time to solve this case. They had to use some form of advanced DNA. The technology got better. They were able to get enough proof that they believed was enough to prove it beyond any and all reasonable doubt. We'll see at the trial. But it's frustrating and puzzling for the public on why these cases take forever.
Well, in a case like this, it took that long because of the fact that they didn't have an eyewitness. They didn't have anyone who put her there. She was a suspect from almost the beginning, if I'm not mistaken, but there wasn't enough evidence to arrest her. It demonstrates that the system works more than anything else.
I get that, but then when someone gets charged, from the time you get charged till we get a trial, it takes year after year after year and keeps getting put off, put off.
But that's also demonstrating that the system works, okay? That means that you're not going to trial before you're ready. It means you're not going to be rushed to justice. Delays in the defense side are a benefit to the defense. They're really a benefit to the state. So, you know, the fact that she's sitting in jail, that's a consequence, of course, but it's her side that wants to make sure that when they go in and there's going to be the pitch and the swing, that they're going to be able to give the best at bat they possibly can. So under those circumstances, this is the perfect example of when the system is working, because they don't want to rush to justice, and there should not be a rush to justice. I mean, the victim, I feel very badly for that man that he's had to live this life this way with the doubt and everything else. But I'm sure he wants to make sure that justice is done. It seems like he's found a higher power. And God only knows, and of course today is Brian Wilson's birthday, so it's a perfect segue with that. But God only knows that he wants justice. And I think he wants to know that the person who is convicted is the right person. So give them the time necessary.
Speaking of time, Darnell, we don't have time for you in this segment, because you know what happened. Once again, Al chewed it up. So you're going first next segment. So get ready, Darnell. You're lined up. First up, when we come back, Amber Heard, did you watch Friday night on Dateline, speaking with Court TV alum Savannah Guthrie? I mean, did she re-defame Johnny Depp? That was my 13th juror question. Your verdict when we come back.
In civil case number CL 2019-2911, Mr. Depp's claim against Ms. Heard. 1. As to the statement appearing in the online op-ed entitled, "Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change." In the Washington Post online edition, quote, "I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change," end quote. Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes.
Jury spoke very clearly, right? Very clearly. Amber Heard defamed Johnny Depp. She was not a survivor, all of that. He did not hit her. That's what they said. That's what they said with their verdict. So, Savannah Guthrie did this really good, really good interview. I'm so glad that she did it, as opposed to other folks who may have done it at one of the networks. I mean, she knows what she's talking about. Super bright, super smart, Court TV alum. And my question to you was, after watching that interview, did Amber Heard in that interview re-defame Johnny Depp? We begin with our 13th juror comment of the day. Comes to us from Brenda, who said, I would say she defamed him more in the interview than the op-ed. In the op-ed, she doesn't directly name Depp. In the interview, she explicitly says he hit her, which has been decided as false by a jury. very slippery slope she's taking. Darnell Crosland, your thoughts tonight about Amber Heard in that sit-down interview. I agree with Brenda. It was much more direct, her defamatory statements in that interview than in the op-ed. I can't hear him. Can you guys hear him?
Loud and clear.
Oh, can you hear me?
All right. I thought Al pushed the button to keep you from talking again. It's amazing.
He probably did that.
Go ahead, Darnell.
So we discussed this a little bit before. So the question is, prior to the trial, she made these comments about surviving the wrath, of speaking out against domestic violence, and she implicated that it was Johnny Depp that caused this pain. After the trial is over, she's explaining to the world what her feelings are as to the jury's verdict. Now, we all know that there's been guilty verdicts, not guilty verdicts, things that have gone up on appeal. It turns out the jury was wrong, or maybe the jury was right, but they didn't get the proper evidence presented to them upon which they could make a decision. So it's a real slippery slope to claim that she's redefaming him when she's really just saying she disagrees with the jury's opinion. She should just say that and say why. They haven't said that. And I think she even said that she agrees with it or she's not going to question the jury's opinion, but then she goes and questions the opinion. So it's a hard articulation that does sound like she's still doubling down on Johnny beat her up.
Yeah, and in most cases, I mean, doubling down is kind of okay, but the case was about defamation. So it's about what she was saying and what she was alleging, what she was accusing him of. It's amazing how this has evolved here. Here's what Tina has to say. It's only defamation if it's proven that her claim is false and it harms his reputation. Right now, it looks like his reputation is intact. That's a good point by Tina, and her allegations are not having any impact on him. Time will tell. So what do you think of that, Jennifer? I think it's a great point by Tina, by the way. That
I agree. I agree. I mean,
nobody believes her anyway, so it doesn't matter what she says, right? So you can't harm his reputation because nobody believes you, Amber.
I know his reputation has been totally rehabilitated by this trial, and if anything, it's better than ever. So. I agree. I mean, nobody's really believing her at this point. The jury already made their verdict. They clearly didn't believe her. Public opinion is against her. Social media is against her. So I kind of feel like, yeah, it doesn't matter too much what she says. It's just more of the same. But I'm a little surprised that she was even giving this type of an interview at this juncture. You know, maybe a different type of discussion about her career or getting her career back on track rather than revisiting all of these issues over and over again. That probably
all right, poetic justice. That's all the time we have. Al Wunsch, Darnell Crosland, Jennifer Brandt, thank you so much. We'll see you again real soon. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.